Is it live? Going live? It's live. It is the Beck Scrum. Michael, how would you summarize what we've been doing this afternoon?
We wrapped a test around a potential bug on production.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially fixed it with Hangouts not updating.
Mm-hmm.
So that it was affecting whether the Hangout appeared as live or not on the site.
Mm-hmm.
Submitted a pull request for that and did some refactoring. We're not sure till it goes live whether it's going to be part of the solution or not.
Right.
And then we were looking at pairing data.
Indeed.
To see how many sessions of pairing from the MOOC seem to be single participant.
Mm.
Indicate a failure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like a large percentage was potentially that way.
Yes, indeed. Good summary. Other things I've done this morning, I worked through the Rails intro assignment on what's it called, C9, and upgraded it to I forgot what it's called. Can't brain. Upgraded it to Rails 4.2.6 and Ruby 2.3. Yes, and as Michael said, we've been looking at this data.
We could do standard statistical tests on our data.
Yes, I would say that the quality of the data
is different from.
Indeed, we could. I would say that the quality of our data is sufficiently low that it's not worth doing much analysis of it.
Well, we have 600 points of data. I mean, that's.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that they're. That means we have a quantity of data. It doesn't mean we have any quality of data. What I was interested in generating this sort of view to see is that what we're going to have happen now is that with this bug fix that we roll out, hopefully it gets rolled out, potentially we'll see a big change in this distribution, or maybe we won't at all. What we've.
Well, we could do statistical tests and prove that.
What, that there's a change or not a change?
Yes.
Oh, yes. After we've had some intervention.
I think it's called a two-pair t-test.
Yes, I have spent many years working with ANOVAs and other statistical tests, having taught courses in statistical analysis.
I don't know whether you believe in those things, but.
Well, believe it would be a strong. I have over time tried to have a very strong understanding of those things because they are the make or break in the social sciences and the sort of soft sciences about one's data. To be honest, I don't see publication of data as being at the moment anything that will help Agile Ventures be sustainable necessarily. I don't know. But I guess what I'm thinking about is the source of the data. And so what we've been looking at is how the Hangout connection thing basically fires back data at this event instances controller. And I guess we could even actually now, assuming it's still.
Well, if we had a two-paired t-test, like I was saying, be able to assert that after such and such date, the distribution of participants changed for whatever reason.
Yes, but I think in the first instance, I'm more likely to trust, a visualization of the data than I am to worry about whether we have, particular statistical tests for it. But if you're interested in doing the statistical tests, that's something we can certainly look at.
I think it's literally like one line in R, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, indeed, yes. I mean, if you get your data for it, I mean, I've been using SPSS and MATLAB and R and these things. I've got it's stuff I've spent a lot of time on in the past.
Anyway,
but I think that all of those things, the thing to look at perhaps first is, now why is that not, is that actually hitting there? Okay, yeah, it actually is. So this is one of the updates, is to be investigating, is to know where your data is coming from and what's going on. So this here is the participants thing that's being sent back, right?
Correct.
And so as far as we can make out, this is going to be an instantaneous, the participants in the Scrum or whatever right now.
Yes.
And so if I drop out, and this carries on, then as far as we can see, I mean, assuming that the update of the system actually works, there's no
point.
Yeah, it's not storing like a sequence or like that. Like we're basically throwing away data about potentially throwing away data about who was in the Scrum or the Hangout, or whatever. Each time this comes through, I mean, we've got this big lot of stuff here with it trying to. We've got the Slack service. How does this? Okay, so here. Okay, if the Hangout URL changes or the event instance is started. But so the started, that there is a Hangout URL. What stops this re-hitting the Slack instance every time the I guess it's the Hangout URL changed. Hangout URL changed. Okay, so it's basically right. It could in principle be hitting the Slack every time, but it avoids doing that by checking if the Hangout URL is still the same. And if it's still the same, it says, okay, fair enough. I don't have to update it. And the updating it with the Hangout params, it's taking those set of things, it's sticking them in there. And as we've seen, the participants there is what's going on there? Just look at the schema, but it's just a string. Yeah. So we've got no evidence that anything more than just the instantaneous information about the participants is stored. Event instances, participants is just a text string, and on the event instances itself, whereas event instances here, back event itself here, we've got this. This is the only. So we've got this thing for like. That's the only thing that involves the participants there. So we would have to say that at the moment, even if we do achieve this change, it may actually reduce the validity of the data in as much as, I don't know, it's a question of within the 2-minute time frame that we have as an update. I guess it tells us how to interpret this list, is that we get the information about who was the host, and to the extent that we seem like it's only the first update that works, the information that's in here, it's just it's a snapshot of who was there within the first 2 minutes.
Correct. Which implies that we might want to end up reworking our data.
Yeah.
To capture more or persist more of the data.
Yes. It does, doesn't it? And if we go back to, I mean, the interesting, what other data are we getting back from the Hangout? And is this, so the interesting thing there is, so what have we got? We've got the participant's ID, whether they have a microphone, have a camera, have
there's
the
a lot
app. Say again?
I said there's a lot of data being sent back.
Yeah.
That could come in handy at some point.
Well, and I wonder about this data. Like, if we look at the, I wonder if it's dumping all of the data that's available, or if it's sending back just what happens to be. But like, so we've got here, like this is the coffee script that creates this, and so like a lot of the participants there, right? That looks like it's just that's the okay. So participants here is we're calling this.
It's something coming out of the Google API. Yeah.
Right. And so that looks like that. Then that's the entire structure about what we could get about the participants.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be other things that we can get out of the Hangout thing. I wonder if we get. Interesting. Get participants. We'll get enable participants, get participants ID, get participants. Get participants to Hangout. Note the list of participants reflects the current state of the Hangout server. There can be a small window of time where the local participant is not in the returned array. Array, participant, and then, right, this is the standard set of data that we're getting back from here. But look, so for example, that there's then a series of other things that we could also be asking as well as participants. Oh, go on. No? What happened there? Why don't we go forward? Okay, in here. Get enable participants, get local, get preferred, get start data, participant, get local participants. Has age restriction. Oh, okay, then there's events. I was just looking at that there. I was looking at participant, and then I was just seeing down here. So these are different classes, and we have added participants. Contains information about a change of participants. And I guess these are different events that could be fired when people, leave or what. I mean, so for example, it could be, we could even be receiving like telemetry about, presumably we were registered and we were listening for these events. Then as soon as the participant changed,
we could receive that.
We could receive that rather than, having it on a timer.
Yeah. True.
But that seems. That's probably not immediate. Okay, so we've got okay, so events on participants changed. Yeah, adds a callback to be called whenever there is any change to the participants in the Hangouts. So that would allow, a much more finely tuned thing. I mean, actually, for our purposes, yeah. I mean, I think if users started complaining that, oh, with this person that said that they were there and they weren't there, and I'm really angry and I'm going to sue you if you don't make it more accurate, then that would be useful to know about. Yeah, I guess the more immediately, what would be nice would be if when this was updating, rather than just dumping the participants array, the participants information, is that it might actually parse that, try and, it's almost like that there's another model in there. There's like a Hangout participant model, and then it would work through the participant list, and it would then create a Hangout participant. Now, where has that gone? That we would create, we'd basically create like a Hangout participants thing, and then the instances could have many Hangout participants, and we could store this data separately, and then it could be well, and I guess there's then, because there's a snapshot, it's almost like, ask if we need that level of detail, but
it's better to have that detail.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking, in the first instance, they're just passing what we have. We have this setup here where we have this event instance, which we might agree is a horrible name for it, but we then have, we have participants at start, and then we have this index going forward of participants at time index 2, and so on, like this, don't we?
Yeah.
And so,
and if we had data about if and when things went live.
Yes, as well. And I'm thinking almost there's kind of what there is we've got, if the event instance had things like, almost, what would you have? You'd have like, I mean, what if you had, you could have like a participant has many or whatever, and then you could, in the participant model, you could have the, all the Google data, and then you could also have, the joined at, left at,
Yeah.
and so parsing the incoming data, if a person appears there, I mean, we would just, this would be like, 0 to, in a first instance, without making changes to the way that the Hangout connection is sending stuff back, it could be doing like this.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, see, the thing is, if my objective was academic, this would all be fantastic data for publishing papers. But I think we're in a different situation where what we need to be able to do is make changes that will actually allow us to get data from which we will actually be able to improve the service. It seems to me, my hypothesis.
Well, I mean, you still want the data.
Oh yeah, well, I think absolutely we want the data. I'm just that there's, we definitely want the data. There's a question of what structure to sort it into, and like, I mean, this is, I was thinking there of like, of a mechanism of storing the participants. Like, I mean, there's actually more, like, this would be one thing, right? That if we, like, the full data set is actually to have, event instance with, like, would be a different model. That's like, because you might want to capture like the fact that the participant, like the microphone became disabled at one point versus another point. I mean, I think those are unlikely to change. Like, and actually, I guess we can argue that pretty much this data is unlikely to change over the course of the Hangout. Like, if you started and your camera was disabled, it's probably not going to magically become enabled over time. I guess sometimes if you like reload the Hangout, maybe it could. But so, there was going to be like, you kind of have to have an open-ended to store all the data. You'd need like an arbitrary list of, I guess it would be like, you'd have to have a separate model, which would be like a time index that has many participants, and then a event instance would like has many time indices, and then you would like store the data in toto. And I guess it would be, yeah, I don't know. I mean, so what, you know, one can, this would be more work to create than I think this one. This would be, you know, capture more of the data. The question is like, you know, which one, or some other one that we've yet to think of, you know, and the work against it versus what kind of benefit we get it. I mean, the hypothesis that I would have is that it, like, being able to somewhat reliably show who is present in a live hangout and like all the participants in finished events will increase the likelihood that people will join hangouts. I would say both join existing hangouts and create new ones. And my theory here is, I think it's like we've got this sort of setup where the hangout is kind of a like a black box. It's like a room that you go into and you're not necessarily sure how many people are there. And although, like, you click the link, there's that as you're going through the clicking, yes, I'm sign my life away to Google, what have you. There's a point where it says, oh, these are the people that are in there.
Yeah.
But I think that people, you know, before they they're like, you know, clicking on the join a hangout in the first instance is kind of, you know, an emotionally challenging or emotionally charged event for people, you know, that there might be unknown people in there. And I think that if, you know, we could be showing in all of the event lists, right? So if we've got, I mean, this is like always sort of after the fact, and I don't know that anybody looks at this anyway. I think we ultimately need a kind of, you know, an events view where you could see, you know, right, one that you could see easily who's the person who created it, and then it's also like for the community, you know, if you see that an event belongs to somebody that you've prepared with previously, you're more likely to join it. If you can see that there's an active event and it's got 4 people in it, you're like, oh, there's a few people, and you know, I know those 2 people, so it's all about allowing people to feel comfortable to get actually into the hangouts. And if you can see, oh, here's this history of all of these different previous events, and that had those people in it, and that had those people in it, and that, oh, well, you know, you kind of like, oh, right, this is you can kind of actually see the trace of the active community. Whereas here at the moment, I mean, we've got it with a proxy with the text, but you know, people relate so much more strongly to images. Anyway, sorry, I'm just going off on one. And so I'm thinking that at least, yes, there's like having this data model, at least one like this, would probably be the fastest way of more accurately representing like the participants in the finished ones, and kind of merging the, like here, if the live event, if at least the live events were shown here, and you could kind of get a quick view of like who's in them, I think that would be a step in the right direction. I don't know. What do you think of all that? Am I just babbling crazy stuff?
Maybe.
Anyway, I got to take my boys to a karate lesson.
All right.
Yeah, interesting.
I might be here.
Yeah, well, maybe see you in the if you were around for the kickoff and you even wanted to run that kickoff, that would be great. But yeah, see how you go.
Bye.
All right, bye for now.